Okay, it's time to begin. 1 Peter chapter 4, then we'll go into chapter 5. I think I have this Sunday and next Sunday, we'll finish up. And then the following Sunday, well, when is Easter? Is it the first Sunday of April? Okay. We'll have, I believe Jonathan Carlisle is going to teach the Bible class because I'll be in Georgia with the last leaders for that Easter Sunday. Charlie is going to be preaching for us on Easter Sunday. And then I'll be back Sunday night from Georgia. Anyway. We're going to start in verse 12. Peter has come back to the purpose for which he is writing, which is, of course, to encourage the Christians to endure and to hold the line despite what they're experiencing at the time. And so he comes back to it after, using several ways in which to look at, challenging times. He then asks the question, or at least makes the comment, by saying, why are you so surprised that you're experiencing these things? And I thought that was a good question. Why are people surprised when Christians have hard times?
We live in the world.
What?
Because we live in the world. We can have
Okay, well, I mean,
This is just my thoughts, but I think sometimes people think when they become Christians, everything is supposed to, just fall into place. They're not supposed to have any more hardships.
but, even that I find surprising that people would think that way. And is it that they're surprised, or is it something else that they're voicing concerns about? I don't really, it's hard for me to imagine that there would be someone who believes in God that imagines that nothing bad would happen to them because of their belief in God. I don't know where they would get that from the Bible. Is it a misapplication of when the Bible talks about God delivering us and protecting us, that lends itself to the idea that they interpret that as being somewhat immune or inoculated to suffering? I don't know. I've always found that kind of interesting point of view because it's not accepted in anything else. I mean, life is life. Everybody seems to understand that. So I don't know what it is about some who think and argue, and maybe it's intentionally to argue against the faith, that
But even back with Job, his friends, even his wife, they thought he was doing something wrong.
right.
So I guess people's mentality, if they're doing what's right, then everything should be smooth.
Uh-huh.
But that's not the case.
So if you're living right, like we like to joke about, then I'll find me a close parking space, in a crowded parking lot, right? Every time we find one of these, we go, we must be living right. And of course, we're jesting.
But that's the same instance that when we feel like we hear things like, especially with children, or the elderly get taken advantage of, or things of that nature. I mean, that bothers us, and we answer or ask the question, why does it happen to them? Why wasn't God there to protect them?
So is it that God protects us and he's obligated to protect us from harm, physical harm?
Well, he's not obligated.
We wouldn't say he's obligated, would he? The question would be is, I think the misapplication or the misunderstanding is, how does God protect us? How does God preserve us? How does God shield us? It's in faith where he does it. Okay? Now, I can't put my finger on God's providential work and all of that that may occur. You know, someone survives an accident, you know, and the other people who were in the accident, they get killed. And so the person who survives says, you know, look what God delivered me. Okay? Well, who knows? But you can see why others would say, well, that's kind of bad to say because he chose to let the other die. You know what? Maybe they're both Christians. So I think we have a way of trying to justify God's activity or to explain it or to reason with it, because we do have that feeling, or I don't know, maybe it's a misapplication, that we should be shielded from certain things since we're Christians. But I don't find where God says anything about that. Now, he mentions about delivering us and things of that nature. We'll talk some about that tonight, but it's the place in which deliverance is found. See, God can help us in our suffering. Okay. I would rather have him deliver me from the suffering instead of helping me in the suffering to endure it, right? But the teachings often are the idea that, there could be deliverance from the actual hurt, you know, or it could be that within the suffering or in the challenge itself, faith enables us, trust enables us to endure it. That to me is the teaching in relationship to suffering of the New Testament. We all prefer the deliverance from. And since I don't know all the ways in which God moves in our world, I do have a passage that whatever it is, for the Christian, it will work out for what? For the good of God's will. Okay? It may not, I guess, what does it say? All things work together for good to those who what? Love God.
And are called.
Yeah,
And
who
are
are
called
and are-
according to his purpose.
Yeah, according to his purpose, okay? So, in that respect, don't you find it somewhat interesting, and Peter will bring this up, that one of the blessings that we overlook and don't even talk about with suffering and hardship is we share with Jesus in that suffering and hardship. That's one of the recurring statements in the New Testament by Paul and even Peter. So he says, you know, don't be surprised. Actually look at it as opportunity. And he uses this language of we share the sufferings of Jesus. And so you remember, Peter has already established the fact that Christianity is established, yes, by promise. Yes, it's God's plan. God brought it to fruition. But it's all based upon suffering and death, the crucifixion. And since that is the beginning and the foundation of Christianity, suffering should not be unexpected by the Christian, though it is. You know, if anybody or any people should anticipate certain challenges and suffering, it ought to be Christians, particularly if we're living righteous lives, we will incur certain attitudes and actions against us.
Well, Jesus even told his apostles that world
Yeah.
persecuted him and hated him, they're gonna hate you too.
And like they did they'll do to you. Yes.
We're all gonna suffer.
Ruth, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, when sometimes Christians do suffer a lot, first thing people say, well, boy, she must not be living a Christian life. You know, and the older you get in the faith, you learn to deal with it more.
Yeah.
Know that everything's not gonna be stopped from us just because we became a Christian.
So, that's right. So Jesus, in his life and ministry, everything went well for him. No. So why do we think that the one who is the Lord and the founder of the movement, the Christian, and the church, and the builder of the kingdom, all that, why would we assume that we would go through life different from the way Jesus went through it as the Son of God? Does that make sense? Well, I don't. It's kind of. It's not pleasant to talk this way. It's much more pleasant for me and to speak in reference to God making us healthy, wealthy, and wise. Sort of put a spin on the reality of Christianity. This is, I think, sometimes the downfall of what we would call TV evangelists and stuff like that, because it's the health and wealth gospel. Well, as far as I know, most Christians probably aren't healthy and wealthy. I mean, one or the other or both. So, does God bless us? Yes. I do believe that if we give, God gives back to us. But I don't know how he's going to give back to us. I don't know what. And whether or not that occurs, the ultimate promise is what? What are the benefits of sharing and suffering with Christ as he suffered? We're sharers in the suffering. What are the benefits of that?
Number one, when you're suffering, you're gonna be talking more to God.
Okay.
You're gonna be searching the Word more.
Jesus definitely did that. Garden of Gethsemane, different place he went off and spent time with the Father. Yeah. It sort of conditions our mindset of our mortality, how dependent we are upon God. But what is the ultimate benefit of suffering as Jesus suffered? Growth is a part. Salvation. Yeah, I think you're heading in the right direction with salvation. What happened after Jesus' suffering? It is finished. He's buried. What happened? He was raised. Okay? That's the key in looking at suffering. If we share the sufferings of Jesus for being God's people, whether we bring in ourselves because of how we stand and our faith that we have, or whether things happen in life, if we have the understanding that in suffering we're sharing in Christ's suffering. Suffering is a part of Christianity. That there are benefits, and the ultimate benefit is the realization of resurrection. Okay? So it sort of creates a different mindset in how we approach things. And so Christians then begin looking at suffering as a blessing, not a curse. It's something that's affirming our faith, not something that's bringing questions. Where's God? Where's God? You see? That's, to me, is what Peter is wanting Christians to understand in regard to the hardships that they're experiencing as they're scattered. Huh?
Our suffering also shows us what was sacrificed.
Yeah.
How much he did actually give.
Yeah. Now, when I talk about sharing in the sufferings, there's no way that we share and like sufferings of Jesus. The thing, his crucifixion, all that. We're to live as a sacrifice, right? But I think the general idea that Jesus' ministry was a ministry of the suffering servant. That's what Isaiah preached about, Isaiah 53. And the ultimate suffering was the cross, but it was becoming sin for everybody. My God, why have you forsaken me? I mean, that to me was the ultimate statement of suffering. And yet, despite all of that, in his fulfilling God's plan, focused on his purpose, not wavering from it, what happened? 3 days later, resurrection, glory. And so Paul will talk more about the glory to come. Peter talks about sharers of suffering by indicating what comes next. We ought to take heart that our trials are nothing but temporary, as he says, though we suffer for a little while, okay? Because there is glory to follow. There's wonderful things afterward. So he starts in verse 12, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. I just have always thought this was an interesting statement, because it's as if Peter's writing saying, I'm surprised that you're surprised of what's happening to you. He says, but rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings. Now, he's not talking about the sufferings that come as a result of being an evildoer. So you do something wrong, you're arrested, you go to jail. That's not suffering for Christ, I'm sorry. Because that's enduring a consequence of being an evildoer. And we don't want to be evildoers, he says in the letter. But if someone suffers as a Christian, not only, in being a Christian, or as a result of your actions as a Christian, brings upon you certain challenges and issues, then we are to rejoice. Insofar as you share the sufferings of Christ, that you may also rejoice and be glad when what? His glory is revealed. When Jesus' glory is revealed at his second coming, none of this will matter. Your aches and pains, your disease, your sorrow from loss, your hurt from family members, the betrayal by a friend, the relationship that went south, the gossip that you were the point of. Will that matter? It hurts now. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't like any of that. It hurts now. But let me think about it. Was Jesus gossiped about? Did he have his adversaries? Did he go through any kind of emotional pain? Did he have anybody that was close to him die? Yeah. I mean, all these things. In fact, the Bible indicates in the letter of Hebrews that he was tempted in all points as we are, yet without sin. So Jesus definitely, in human form, went through life as we go through life. The point of difference about him is he lived life perfectly. in perfect alliance with the will of God. So he becomes the sacrifice for us to bear our sins, to open up salvation so God can show his mercy to all people in Christ. But despite that, Isaiah 53, let's turn there for just a minute. Sometimes I don't think we realize the significance of this suffering servant theme that describes Jesus' ministry. Notice 53, beginning of verse 1. He says, "Who has believed what he has heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant, like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was," what do you have? He was despised. What does that mean? Hey, you ever had anybody despise you? Charlie, what were you going to say?
Yes.
I have too. Which, I find it hard to believe, but I've had some who have despised me. And rejected by men. A man of what? Sorrows. You ever been sorrowful? What sorrows? And acquainted with grief. What is?
Mine says suffering.
Suffering, pain. Acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men, what do?
Hide their faces.
Hide their face. Now, this isn't because he's the Son of God and you can't look upon the Son of God. This is not a statement of respect or honor or reverence. It's a sign of despising the individual. He says he was despised, he says it again, and we esteemed him not. You ever been treated like a lowlife? Have you? Yeah, there's been instances that I have been treated like that, second class type of thing. One, it's not a part of, the in crowd, all that. I mean, even as dean, when I was dean of the Bible department, there were times when I had that feeling, Surely he has borne our griefs, carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. See, here's things brought upon him he didn't deserve. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. You have any open wounds? I'm not talking about real physical wounds. You may have those.
Yeah.
But you have open emotional wounds. I mean, they're kind of like on the surface. Something happens, kind of take the scab off. He says, and we all like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet what did he not do? What does that mean? He opened not his mouth. That doesn't mean he never talked, because we know Jesus talked a lot.
He didn't speak against his accusations.
He didn't speak against the accusation. He didn't threaten. Peter talks about that in 1 Peter. He uttered no threats. He didn't revile in return, but he turned things over to whom? His Heavenly Father. So he says, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, And like a sheep that before its shears is silent, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and a judgment, he was taken away. You remember the false accusations? They got people to say things falsely. Just like in our politics today, the way things happen sometimes. You can pay people off. Did you know that? You could pay people off to say things that aren't true? Well, I had no idea you could do that. And as far as his generation, who considered that he was cut off the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. See, people who saw Jesus die on the cross, they didn't know really who he was dying there, being crucified because of what? We know why he was there. He was innocent, but you remember he was executed with thieves. His association with those two thieves would have in the mind of many and most people that he was also a what? A thief or a criminal. That's just what happened to the criminals. They were executed by Roman. So think of all the people who thought things about him. You have people who think things about you and you know it's not true, and yet it keeps getting spread, or you hear it again. It's sometimes I hear things about the church that aren't true. That's still propagated by, people. They made his grave with the wicked and with the rich man in his death, although he had done no violence and there was no deceit in his mouth. Now notice this verse 10, this transition here. How did the Father feel about all this? Yes, it was the will of the Lord to do what? Crush him. Man, that's strong language, isn't it? He has put him to grief. Who put him to grief? The Lord did. The Father. He says, when his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring, and he shall prolong his days. What does God look toward? He sees, he crushes the Son. That is, Jesus is executed, right? It's the plan of God. But what does the Lord see? He sees the result of that. What is it? The salvation of many. He shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. See, all these good things kind of stand in opposite of what's just been said. I'm going to crush him. He's going to be executed. Lord, why are you doing this? Because of the result, the effect of it. This is how the fountain of salvation is opened. This is how God is going to show his mercy to sinful people, is by the sacrifice of his Son. Out of the anguish of his soul, he shall see it and be satisfied. Now notice, God is described as having some what? Some anguish in doing it as well. Right? But when he sees the fulfillment of all this, it's a delight to him. He'll be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous. He shall bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sins of many and makes intercession for the transgressors. All right. So, from this particular section in Isaiah about the suffering servant, which we know is fulfilled in Jesus Christ, there are benefits that have come as a result of Christ's suffering. Intercession, salvation, glory to come, prosperity to come, in regard to eternity. So all of that should supersede or at least diminish the pain. Because of what's following. I'm not saying it's easy, okay. But it is a way of looking at life that the New Testament is teaching us. So, he says, but rejoice, this is 1 Peter chapter 4 again, but rejoice insofar as you share the sufferings of Christ, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. But let none of you suffer as a murderer or a thief or as an evildoer or as a meddler. Yet if anyone suffers, and here it is, as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in that name. And then verse 17 some find it a difficult passage, but I think the difficulty comes without understanding it in the context of which Peter is mentioning this. He says, for it is time for judgment to begin at the household of God. And if it begins with us, what will be the outcome of those who do not obey the gospel of the Lord? Okay, let's think about that for just a minute. What does he mean by bringing this up? What's judgment is he talking about? Judgment. It's time for judgment to begin with the people of God. What?
Self-judgment.
I didn't hear, Tracy.
Self-judgment.
Self-judgment? Okay. What else? Is he referring to eternal judgment here? Yes.
It seems to me that he said, we're going to suffer. If we suffer, others will as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the context in which he's saying this is, okay, if we are suffering, okay, as Christians, and think of it this way, suffering can be a revelation to us about our faith, can it not? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how do I know if I'm battle tested unless I'm in a battle?
Stronger.
Okay, yeah, it makes us stronger. So if we are bending the knee or allowing our faith to be weak with the temptation of going back into our old ways because it's too hard, I'm incurring things that maybe living back as a Gentile or a Roman I wouldn't face, okay? But Peter reminds them that's not true. Where is salvation found? It's in Christ, right? And so you can suffer as a Christian and be saved. But if you suffer as a non-Christian, your only hope is what? You don't have one, by the way. It's death. Where are you going to go? If judgment begins with the people of God, okay? How do, and we're dealing with this pivot. Am I going to leave Jesus or I'm going to remain strong in my faith? If there's only two ways, okay? And if there are certain ones who are doubting and becoming unfaithful, where are they going to go? Where do you go? That's why he says, for it is time for judgment to begin at the household of God, and if it begins with us, what will be the outcome for those who do not obey the gospel of God? At least now, you see, you are in faith. You have hope. So don't let this cause doubts about where salvation is, cause you to not trust God. There's nowhere else to go. You say, I'll go back to my old life. Well, you have the freedom of will to do that. You can quit the church if you want to. You can fall from grace, walk out on the Lord. There's no escape for you in doing so. So see, he's really hammering here at the end about showing them there's nowhere else to find salvation. So this is where one needs to stand strong in faith. Now, why does he say their statement? Let's see. If the righteous is scarcely saved, that bothers a lot of people. Why is he saying this?
Well, no one deserves to be saved.
Okay. No one deserves to be saved. If there is a possibility of one to fall from grace or to forsake the Lord, what will become of the ungodly and the sinner? We know the question. I mean, if you run the risk as a child of God, okay, of being lost because of your what? Departure. That's the emphasis that is given. Of your departure. Okay? That's what he means. Scarcely being saved. It's if one departs from God because of the circumstances you're in, what shall become of the ungodly and sinner? So you have numbered yourself among them. And you know what comes to them. You've been taught. So you're talking about I think, in winding this up on the suffering things, he's used a tone, I don't know how you say it, a strong admonition at the end here to say, in reality, there's no choice but one to make. And that is to keep the faith. Otherwise, we put ourselves at risk. Now, he ends and says, therefore, let those who suffer according to God's will, what's the answer to it? Entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good. Even while you're suffering, do good. Do good. Go about doing good. Even for your enemies.
Scott,
Yes.
do you think that non-Christians, do you think that they even sometime even think about what happens after death? Surely you can't think that I can do all these bad things and then all of a sudden everything's gonna be hunky-dory or it's just ended. I don't understand. I don't know what I don't understand.
Well, I think
The way people think.
it's the perspective that various people have, how they've chosen to rationalize what happens after death or God doesn't exist. Since they have bought into certain ideologies, it leads to a certain lifestyle, certain behavior. Some people are good citizens
Yeah.
out of the fact that it is better to be a good citizen, and to help people instead of hurting people. I mean, that seems to be common sense, right, for any society. But that isn't equated to salvation. Good deeds that we do are the result or are motivated because of our faith in Jesus. The good deed does not earn anything. It is a motivation we have of having a lifestyle and a behavior and attitude to serve and help, to go about doing good. Not that in doing that, we somehow are earning anything, we do it just because of who we are. The price has already been paid. There's nothing that we could offer God, do for Him, that would satisfy the cost of what sin requires, His holiness requires. It's only Jesus did. So my motivation, and I think sometimes we think this way, that if I did my good deed for the day or whatever, it's almost like, hey, look at what I did. Okay, all right. Well, you do it not for recognition or approval or some sense that you're gaining an advantage. You do it because of who you are as God's child. And think of the liberation of thinking that way. That I can't do anything to earn anything or to win over affection. It's been done already. God has shown His affection to you, His love for you in the death of Christ. So when I go about doing good, what I'm trying to do is model my Lord and His behavior, right? So God is the faithful creator. So here's the little hope. I wouldn't say a little hope. The big thing that's stated is the fact that continue to trust God. Your view of God has a lot to say in how you live under these circumstances. God is faithful. Okay, what does that mean? Well, ultimately, glory to follow. I don't know any promise that God's not going to fulfill. But God hasn't made the promise that everything that happens to us will be good. It's that good can come for whatever happens to us. And a lot of that has to do with our attitude and behavior in that thing that's happened to us. Okay. I better stop there because chapter 5 we'll get into a whole different topic with Peter. So we'll end early today. It's the first time, man, ending early in a Bible class. Man, this ought to be a celebration. The 250th year of our nation, is that right?
Yep.
And